So this is our fourth reading session of this very important memorandum that Babasaheb Ambedkar wrote on 29th October 1942. The memorandum, which was titled as Grievances of the Schedule Caste by the Honorable Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and it was submitted. This memorandum was submitted to the Governor General of India at that time. And we have already finished 3 sessions, and today is our 4th session. So I request Nikhil to share among each other how you are going to read. Dara is also there, maybe Sunny also. So you just we begin reading and then we will see how it goes. Okay.
Sure, sir. So Jai Bhim to everyone. As you know, we conduct virtual reading session every Sunday from 5 to 6 p.m. in which currently we are reading volume number 10, in which we are reading grievances of the Schedule Caste, the memorandum submitted by Dr. Ambedkar. So today we are at page number 421, point number 25. So I'll start reading, and accordingly we can pause whenever we want to reflect upon. So point number 25. The opposition to this claim of the scheduled caste comes from very strange and unexpected quarters. It should come from the Hindus, but it cannot. The mutual rights of the scheduled caste and the Hindus are defined by the Pune Pact, which was made in 1932. It is an agreement by which the Hindus have accepted that the scheduled caste are a minority and that they are entitled to adequate share in the public services of the country. It is true that the term adequate was not given a quantitative expression. That is because it was done in a hurry to save Mr. Gandhi from the hands of death. But there can be no doubt that adequate was never intended to be anything less than the population ratio. The Hindus therefore cannot oppose the claim of the scheduled caste, and as a matter of fact, they do not. The party opposing the claim of the scheduled caste is the government of India and nobody else. In the debate on the question that took place in the Central Legislative Assembly on March 1942 on a cut motion by Rao Bahadur N. Sivaraj, MLA, the claim of the scheduled caste for being declared a minority and for defining their share in services, which was the subject matter of the motion, was supported by the Muslims, by the Europeans, Anglo-Indians, and Sikhs. Except for one solitary individual, the Hindus did not oppose it. It was, however, opposed by the spokesman of the government of India. This is the most tragic part of the story. The government of India have said that they were trustees for the welfare of the scheduled caste. As trustees, they should be more ready to safeguard the right of the scheduled caste than to safeguard the rights of the other minorities. There would have been some excuse for the government of India hesitating to allot to the scheduled caste their rights in the matter of recruitment to the public services if there were any obstacle placed in their way by the Hindus. But there is no such excuse. Would it be wrong if it was said that the enemies of the scheduled caste are not the Hindus and their real enemy is the government of India?
Okay. So as you know that today is the day on which the Pune Pact was signed, and there's a mention of the Pune Pact, which was made in 1932, where the Hindus agreed and accepted that the scheduled castes were the minorities, and they were entitled to the adequate share in the public services of the country. And as Babasaheb says, that the word adequate was not qualified by the quantitative expression. That means there was no number placed against it as to how much share of the representation will be given to the scheduled caste. And as Ambedkar says that the question was raised by Rao Bahadur N. Shivraj in the assembly, and the claim of the scheduled caste for being declared a minority. So that claim was made, and nobody opposed it except one individual, as Babasaheb Ambedkar says, opposed it, and though one person opposed it, as Babasaheb Ambedkar is saying that the Hindus did not oppose it, and the real opposition came from the government of India itself. And he's saying that it shows that the real enemy of the scheduled caste, in that case, when it comes to the adequate representation for the scheduled caste, were not the Hindus, but the real enemy was the government of India. So this prompts me to think in a manner that must be the reason why Babasaheb Ambedkar had to draft this memorandum, right, in order to appeal to the government of India as to how they are not being able to safeguard the rights of the scheduled castes. So that was my little comment on that. If anybody has a comment on that, please go ahead. If not, we will go and read on further. Sunny, yes, Sunny.
So, I mean, how is it that, I mean, Hindus are not posing a problem, but the government of India is posing a barrier in granting us the seats or representation. I'm not sure. Maybe I've missed some context.
Yeah, you see, we know that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar uses the language in a context, right? And we know for sure that the Hindus were opposed to the rights of the scheduled caste, as we have seen in the history of the Pune Pact. And it has been clear to us. But in the context of the representation in the services, there was a debate, and that debate was initiated by only one member, solitary member in the assembly, Yan Rao Bahadur Shivraj. And I think when he placed the amendment, the resolution like motion making scheduled caste a minority, and that was supported by the Muslims, by the Europeans, Anglo-Indians, and the Sikhs. And there was only one Hindu who opposed that motion, which means that largely that motion to designate the scheduled caste as the minority was supported by all. And as Babasaheb Ambedkar is saying, that there was a spokesperson of the government of India who opposed it. So what he's saying that the ground is clear for giving the adequate representation to the scheduled caste, except that the government of India is not ready. Right? So I think that was an outcome of the advocacy, or the way Babasaheb Ambedkar was arguing from 1920s onwards. That was like, he has quelled all the opposition to the fact that the scheduled caste were the minorities, right? So this memorandum comes as a way of an appeal, not to the Muslims, not to the Sikhs, not to the other minorities or Hindus. This memorandum was written specifically to address the government of India, to address the problem of the scheduled caste. You follow this, what I'm saying, Sunny?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I get it indeed.
Yeah. So if there is no other further comment, we can go on reading further, okay? Yes.
Okay, so I'll resume reading. Point number 26. What is the reason which the government of India gives for opposing the claim of the scheduled caste? So far as the speech of the Honorable, the Home Member, made on the motion moved by the Honorable Rao Bahadur and Sivraj MLA, is an indication, the reason is that there are not enough educated men among the scheduled caste. It must be said that this is by no means a convincing reason. In the first place, this is the old reason given in 1934 in paragraph 3 of the resolution. It takes no account of the progress that has been made during the last 8 years. In the second place, the statement was not true even for 1934. For 1942, it will be gross misstatement. As a matter of fact, a census of college students of the scheduled caste was taken privately in about 1939 to 40, and the total number of graduates among the scheduled caste were found to be number about 400 to 500. In the third place, this fact, even if it were true, cannot be a bar against declaring the scheduled caste a minority and against fixing their proportion. For if the scheduled caste candidates with minimum qualification fall short in any 1 year of the annual proportion of vacancies reserved for them, nobody will be hurt because the unused vacancies will go to the Hindus. the difficulty anticipated by the home member cannot be said to arise only in the case of the scheduled caste. The condition of the other minorities is not free from giving rise to the same difficulty. In fact, when the government issued the resolution in 1934, they felt that such a difficulty might arise in their case also. But this did not stop government from declaring them to be minorities and fixing their proportion. Government did declare them to be minorities and also fixed their proportion. And for the difficulty that duly qualified candidates may in any given year be less than the vacancies reserved, government provided by paragraph 7 1/3 of the resolution that the residue of the vacancies will be available for the Muslims.
Okay. I think there are some very important points from the point of view of what we are studying. This particular memorandum as the policy memo that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar wrote in 1942 to seek the proportionate representation for the scheduled caste in the government services, ICS and other services. And one of the very important point is here, as I was telling you, that when we write a policy memo, we have to have a lot of data. And sometimes that data is not available with the government. We have to go and privately seek the information. So the contention here for not giving the proper representation to the scheduled caste in 1942 was made by the home member of the Legislative Council, and he said that because there are no educated students among the scheduled castes, and Babasaheb Ambedkar, goes out against this argument. He says that there are now 400 to 500 scheduled caste as the graduates who are qualified to enter into the civil services. And he goes further. He says that this criteria was not used for the other minorities. In case of the Muslims, in case of other minorities, that was not used. And then he, as I said, whenever we are thinking about any policy or drafting any policy, we have to see that what will be the results. So for the first instance is that there is no adequate representation for the scheduled caste. There is no quantitative expression to what kind of adequate representation will be given to the scheduled caste. Third will be whether they are given the minority status, which was one of the main argument of Babasaheb Ambedkar. And the fourth is that if we put in place such kind of a policy, it won't affect anybody, because that's what is due to them. And if the seats lapse, they will go to the other people. That's what Babasaheb Ambedkar is saying. So you see, the point to note here is that the clarity of the thoughts, the clarity of the outcomes of the policies that Babasaheb Ambedkar has enumerated here in this paragraph 26 is very important for us to keep in mind whenever we think about analyzing any policy, right? So anything from anybody before we move on?
All good, sir.
Okay. So we go on, read further.
Sure. Point number 27. Surely the difficulties which can be overcome successfully in the case of other minorities cannot be followed to stand in the way of the scheduled caste. If government does that, it will be guilty of unjustly defeating the just claims of the scheduled caste. It will be accused of using grounds which are not reasons, but which are only excuses for sustaining its opposition to the claims of the scheduled caste. Besides the two remedies suggested, namely one, declaring them a minority, and second, fixing their proportion in the annual vacancies, it will be necessary to sanction other remedies to the scheduled caste for securing to them their fair share in the services. They are raising the age bar, second, reduction in examination fees, and third, appointment of a scheduled caste officer to see that the provisions made in the interest of the scheduled caste in this behalf are carried by all departments concerned.
So these three criteria are fairly clear, right? And this is what we have to bear in mind to give options as to how that policy can be made implementable. So these are some of the solutions which Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar is offering in order to solve the problems of, difficulties in giving the adequate representation to the scheduled castes. So any comment by anybody before we move on? If not, then we go further reading.
So I just have one example in mind. So if we take a government exam, let's suppose we take UPSC here. So we have the age bar raise option that is implemented. We have reduction in examination fees as well. But we do see that the proportion of candidates is being reduced because the total vacancies that come every year, there has been a reduction due to, I think, the introduction of lateral entry, if I'm correct. So because of this, the third point is not being fulfilled and it's slowly diminishing.
That's a very important point that you have put up here, Nikhil, because this EWS is a mockery of the Constitution of India. It's a fraud on the Constitution. And, the lateral entry is another fraud. When there is a commission constituted by the Constitution itself, the UPSC, and, there is a due process by which the All India services are to be, the members of the All India services are to be recruited, and there is a due process. But, the government has really made the mockery of the Constitution by these two policies of lateral entry and the EWS. So we have to do something about it. Well, I don't know what, but raise a kind of voice against it.
So what was the necessity to carve out certain seats? I mean, in the name of lateral entry, I believe that the seats numbered to about 130 to 150, as I recall, and it had no reservation, I recall, for OBC, SC, STs.
There is no
I believe the government chooses or appoints people based on maybe their leaning, or there's something to it. So I mean, what's this whole thing? I mean, why the sudden need to have this thing of lateral entry?
I think it's very clear, that why such kind of provisions are made to give us a lot of representation to particular communities, isn't it? In the name of, saying efficiency, and, that it's very diabolic. If you see this kind of policies of lateral entry and all, it's very clear. But no such much opposition is coming to that. And it's very sad that not much opposition is coming to that. Tara, you wanted to say something?
Sir, EWS is maximum 10%, but all the states have given maximum 10%. It has like up to the state, but state utilize it to maximum 10%.
You see, this is a fraud actually, because you see, there are the communities which have been demanding reservation for like ages, and nobody's looking at them. But the EWS, there was no demand from this section.
And so the funny thing is, since the EWS came in, there have been a lot of discrepancy in the assigning of seats. We see far much seats have been reserved for EWS than for OBCs, SCs. I mean, as day passes on, we see data actually where we see the EWS seats are ramped up, and so there was a book which actually which came by by Ambedkarite Age Collective, I believe. It was also their publishing house was named the Shared Mirror, I believe. So they had a book called EWS, the quota to end all quotas, I believe. So I think that title very well captures the essence of what is taking place
very
with EWS.
That's very, very true. That's very true. So I think why reading such writings or memos, they are helpful to us to give us the historical perspective, but also an analytical perspective as we are begin to see while we are reading it, right?
Yes, if we want to take up the case of private reservation in private institutes, so we can look it as a reference and see how Babasaheb has done it.
Yes. So if anybody has anything to say, or should we move on? Or we go and read further, okay? Nikhil?
Sure, sir. Point number 1, raising the age bar. Under the present rules for the ICS and the central services, the maximum age limit is 24. Generally, this maximum age limit hits the scheduled caste very hard. For owing to their extreme poverty, it is not possible for the scheduled caste boy to reach that level of education, which will enable him to compete with students from higher and well-to-do classes within the age limit. The children of the former have to suffer many breaks in their educational career and have no facilities at home, either for tuition or even for study. The latter have all the facilities for rapid and continuous progress. Consequently, the children of the scheduled caste, by the time they reach the final stage of their education and are in a position to compete, they become ineligible on account of age for recruitment in the public services. It is therefore necessary to raise the age limit by at least 3 years. There is nothing very unreasonable in this demand, and there will be nothing extraordinary if it was conceded by the government of India. In almost all provincial governments where a proportion in the services has been reserved, these concession has been made, and the age limit for scheduled caste has been fixed at a pitch higher than what is fixed for others. In some provinces, the difference is of 2, and in some provinces, it is of 3 years. In granting this concession, the government of India will be following a well-established principle.
So I think that's self-explanatory. We can go ahead, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Second, reduction in examination fees. Point number 30, the ICS examination fees is rupees 100. The examination fee for Indian Audit and Account Services is rupees 82. And other ministerial services examination assistance grade, the fees is rupees 30. These fees are too heavy for the scheduled caste. They are really and truly a great handicap. Many a scheduled caste student, after having spent time and year in qualifying for an examination, find it difficult to appear at it because the fees for the examination are beyond the means of their parents. This handicap needs to be removed. It is urged that the scheduled caste candidate should not be charged more than 1/4 of the fees chargeable for these examinations.
Great. We can
So
move ahead.
this is of year 1930s, I guess, right?
Yeah. That was the examination fee for the, if you want to appear for the civil services or the services which are described here.
Okay. So I'll read further. Point number 3, point 31. These two concessions, if allowed, will go a long way to assist the community scheduled caste to compete on more equal terms with its competitors. But the assistance rendered by these steps will not be adequate. Something further must be done, that is to appoint a scheduled caste officer in the government of India, either in the Home Department or Labor Department, whose duty it will be to see that effect is given to the claims of the scheduled caste in the matter of their entry in the public services. It is understood that such officers were at one time appointed by the government of India in order to see that the rules framed by government in the matter of communal representation and services were strictly followed. But even if that be not the case, the necessity and urgency of appointing a scheduled caste officer for protecting the service claims of the scheduled caste is beyond question. There is a greater danger of such rules being set at naught as a result of the prejudices prevailing against the scheduled caste unless there was an officer charged with the duty of dealing with such cases. The only remedy is to have an independent officer charged with the duty to see that the rules are carried out.
Good. Good. Self-explanatory. And I think if anybody has any comment before we go on further reading.
Yeah, we can move on, sir.
We can move on. Okay. We go on reading.
Sure. Point number 4, absence of representation of the Federal Public Service Commission. There are 4 members who at present constitute the Federal Public Service Commission. Of these, 2 are Europeans, one is a Hindu and one is a Mohammedan. The scheduled caste have been left out in framing the composition of the Federal Public Service Commission. There is no ground why they should be denied representation on the Federal Public Service Commission. There are 3 main sections of the people in India. Of these, the scheduled caste form the 3rd main section. The population of this section is measured in millions. Their interest in the service question is quite as important as those of the other 2 main sections of the populations. The danger to their interest is no less than to the interest of the other 2 sections. And the necessity of warding off that danger is much greater than it is in the case of the other 2. Judged by any test, it is difficult to justify the refusal to give representation to the scheduled caste from the Federal Public Service Commission. The Federal Public Service Commission has definitely been given communal character. There can be only 2 conceivable reasons for doing this. In the first place, it may be because it is desirable to have representatives of large sections of the people on the commission. The second reason one can conceive of for giving communal composition to the commission is to set off the communal biases of one community by the communal biases of the other community. Whichever way one looks at it, the omission to give representation to the scheduled caste on the Federal Public Service Commission is sheer injustice. The scheduled caste cannot have any confidence in a public service commission which is infected by the point of view of the Hindus and the Muslims, who, with all their quarrels, can very easily unite to distribute the loaves and fishes among themselves and to keep out the scheduled caste from getting their due share. It is difficult to prove that the commission has been unjust to the scheduled caste, though the fact remains that not a single scheduled caste candidate has so far been certified by the commission to be fit. For no commission can be convicted of partiality. It is open to every commission to take shelter under that most elusive term, unsuitable. That term, far from giving an explanation, is intended to cover a multitude of sins. Justice requires that the scheduled caste should get representation on the Federal Public Service Commission, which is their due.
Okay, so I think this is here we can find the great mind of Babasaheb Ambedkar at work. And this is what we can do, when we are approaching any policy related issues in terms of understanding the counter arguments to the arguments that we are making. And here Babasaheb Ambedkar, it seems like he has already anticipated a lot of counter arguments against the position that he's trying to make. And he's nipping those arguments in the bud. As we see, and we have seen in the last reading sessions that how the biased commissions or the appointing commissions or authorities have been denying the very posts, the scheduled caste, by invoking that the no suitable candidate was found, right? Right, Umesh, last time we were discussing this, that the appointing agencies have been always telling that the no suitable candidate was found, and such was the case even when the people were recruited in the public services. So Federal Public Service Commission today is UPSC, right? And unless it's represented adequately by the members of different communities, it cannot be an impartial recruiting agency, right? Because there can be a number of ways by which you can fudge the selection of the candidates. And therefore, I think it's very important for us to understand here very clearly the kind of arguments, the kind of the language that Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has used here. For example, you see, this is very beautifully worded. The scheduled caste cannot have any confidence in a public service commission which is infected by the point of view of the Hindus and the Muslims, who with all their quarrels, and that has been unfolded in the history, with all their quarrels can very easily unite to distribute the loaves and the fishes among themselves and to keep out the scheduled caste from getting their due share. So very striking framing of the fact that has been done here by Babasaheb Ambedkar in a manner that can convince those who oppose to the kind of, the need of such a commission, right? And it is open to every commission to take shelter under that most elusive term. You see the use of the words, the most elusive term. What is the most elusive term here? Is unsuitable. The suitable candidate was not found, right? So you see, this is what we have to do as a community: master that language, master that analysis, analyze with quantitative tools, analyze in all the manners possible, so that we present the facts as we have been discussing in the previous reading sessions, based on the data, not just coming from the government, as it is now remarked by Babasaheb Ambedkar. The private, data survey can be done to prove the fact, right? So I think this has been turning out to be a very important exercise to go through the reading of Babasaheb, writings of Babasaheb Ambedkar, and read it from frame of how we analyze the public policies and how we write the policy memos and so on and so forth, right? So anything before we move further?
That the language justice requires that the scheduled caste should get a representation. Like if you care about justice, so you must do it. It is your duty to do it.
Very, 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 very beautifully put, Dara. Very nicely put.
So Babasaheb is saying impartial officer should be there. So how do we know about someone's impartiality?
You see, generally there you cannot have anything foolproof. But if there is a member from the scheduled caste communities, as has happened in the history, that in the UPSC there were, it said, I don't know, I am not sure. I have appeared for the UPSC interview 3 times, and like 2 times successfully to share with you. But what has happened? They tell you that there is a member in the interview panel who belongs to the scheduled caste communities, and it is very difficult to figure out. There are 4 or 5 interviewers, and very difficult to figure out who is your man there. But now I think it's compulsory today to have a scheduled caste a member in the interview panel. I don't know how far that has been put in practice in the later and spirit. I don't know that, but that is what is supposed to happen, right? Dara, maybe you have more information, contemporary information.
Yes, Professor Dilip Mandal said that the interview should be live cast, like the cases in the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? It should be recorded, all the interviews. Why not?
And
Yes.
so wasn't a recommendation put forward by, I'm not sure by who, but it was that dropping of the, I mean, like when students come for the interview process, so their last, or I mean their surname should not be present to the people who are taking the interview.
Sure. I'm not sure, because I remember faintly that all the candidates were from the scheduled caste. I don't know. I don't remember it now exactly, but there is no way by which you can hide this reality. Right? There are ways to know. People,
Yes, sir.
right?
Indeed. One way or the another.
Exactly.
Yes. I think, sir, a proper representation of different communities in the panel members can.
I think the presentation has to be everywhere.
Indeed, sir.
It's not about merit or quota or whatever. It's about representation. As simple as that.
Indeed, sir.
All right. Now we are approaching the part 2, the educational grievances. So I think we should go on reading it.
Okay, so just in the lines of that, like the term used, unsuitable, I'm just sharing you one more screen. Let me know once my screen is visible.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, so like recently, like, and on every, you can say, frequent basis, APPSC ITB does apply for RTIs, in which they get to know about the data which has been like norms that are being violated. So as you can see in my screen, this is the recent post that they made, that there were a PhD admissions 2023 criteria, in which there were a number of vacancies, and you can see the number of applied, interviewed, and not found suitable. You can see that majority from SC, ST, OBC were termed to be not found suitable. That is 9%, 3%, and 20%. But if you can see from the data for the general, you can see the 66% acceptance has been there. So
Wow.
this has been the norm that is being done in 2023, while we are discussing the memorandum from 1930s. So you can see that still now the reality is the same, and we are like having the same kind of problems that are being discussed in 1930s.
Thank you so much, Nikhil, for putting this up.
So how is it possible that the vacancies, I suppose the last row is for the open category. So how is it that the vacancies are 168 and the number of candidates admitted are 263?
They're snatched,
not-
they're snatched away from the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and OBCs, no?
Oh, okay. I was going to yeah. That makes sense. Exactly, indeed.
Isn't it? Actually, it's a theft. Theft of power. It's a theft
Open
of
Basically,
theft.
there has been a government mandate that the seats have to be filled. So in order to fill that, this is what they have done.
I mean, the admittance number is very
pure mockery of justice.
very poor actually. I mean 9, 3, 20. I mean this is blatant mockery actually.
Yeah.
And because of which, I mean, there was a recent article also which came up in Express, that the Hindu Times, pertaining to the such discrepancy in PhD and higher education admissions actually. And but still, after all these, after and and I believe after all these years, I mean, it took a lot of lobbying to get the first. It was probably IIT Bombay which opened up the first SC/ST cell. I mean, we see gender cells all across IIT, but I think it took a lot of work to push that SC/ST cell. And even after, when that was granted, they were not even given a proper room or a space to conduct their things. So we can see, I mean, how the structural Brahminism creeps up in these institutions.
Yeah. Nikhil, what I think, because this is another topic, part 2, educational grievances, we leave it for the next reading session. What do you think? And we just discuss on these important issues.
Yeah, even I was about to propose the same. We'll maybe start this fresh in the next session. So maybe if anyone wants to, like, I just will conclude by saying that we have these sessions taking place every Sunday from 5 to 6 p.m. and we have like been doing this from over 3 years now. We have covered a lot of volumes, lots of readings, lots of sessions have been taking place. Almost all of them are being recorded, and there are in our YouTube channels, or there are multiple channels that we have. So if anyone wants to look into, you can just ping us and we can share you with the previous recordings, and we'll be continuing this next Sunday as well. So if anyone wants to highlight any point, they can, and then after that we can conclude today's session.
Perfect. You see, what I'm thinking, Nikhil, is now we got, and I'm sure there are a lot of brilliant people in the community all around, and a lot of you can now begin to look at these kind of questions from a lot of perspectives, isn't it? Like build the database, or write these policy memos, analyze the current policies. Like, I have not seen a kind of an analytical, somebody has gone into the, for example, EWS quotas things, and what is the rationale behind it, the actual policy, and ground of challenging the grounds on which the policy was implemented, and so on and so forth. What happened in the was there a discussion in the parliament? What happened during the discussion? Who opposed it? What were the views of different political leaders? You see what I'm saying? You see, I don't know whether you all are aware of one very interesting channel which is run by the American government called CNET, where they have, like, we have the new channels, and they have this channel specifically devoted to analyzing the policies. CNET, if you Google, you will find it, and it's considered to have the largest coverage, because that's where things matter. And none of that exists in this country. So I was just wondering whether some of the young people can really get together and think about such kind of mechanism to analyze everything that goes on in the name of the policies, and analyze it from the point of view of Schedule Caste, Schedule Tribes, OBCs, and minorities, and in terms of justice and equality, which is sort of a bedrock of a constitution and the country. So I think there is a long way to go in terms of this, because I think reading is good. Reading Babasaheb literature is very good. It gives us so much food for our thoughts, and it gives us a lot of ideas. But unless we find a ways to make them contemporary and make them really resolve the problems that we face today or going to face tomorrow, I think none of this exercise will be helpful to us in a sense of contribution to the societies that we come from. So I'm just playing with the idea, of bringing the people together.
So, sir, you're very
one
right.
idea.
Like, this should definitely be done, and like we do have an example as well. So, with respect to EWS, only if I put up, so there is a you can say a book published by the Shared Mirror about EWS and its analysis, and there are a lot of authors, writers, speakers who have like spoken upon the data and everything. Like there, so like we do have people doing a bit of analysis as well for others too. But I think there is still a scope for more better. You can say.
We want we want, our standard is very high. We want like Babasaheb Ambedkar intervention. Like you compare this particular memo, right? You compare this particular memo that Babasaheb Ambedkar has written in 1942. And we have now so many people who can analyze the data, so many people who can research, so many people who can write. I don't see any of such work coming up. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Definitely.
We have now diagnosed the disease.
Yeah.
And now way forward is for its remedies. Beside fighting for the constitutional values, do you not think that we should parallelly build up such mechanism that our people could get good education in our institution, in our universities? And such mechanism, parallel mechanism, will help to reflect the progress.
You see, I agree with you, but these public institutions are paid from our pockets, right? That's taxpayers money.
Yeah. Besides, I means my submission was beside struggling for our constitutional rights, the another parallel mechanism.
Right.
That parallelly we don't have to rely with the public institutions only, not only,
Right.
because every doors have been closed for us, and we have to build our own campus where doors are open for all of us.
Right. And even,
So
yeah.
even if say like we come out with such a cutting analysis pertaining to a certain policies, its implementation, its effect so far. So, but how can we get it across in the institutions to for examination or review of it, because I'm trying to locate what you're trying to say. I mean, for
Yes, yes. I will come to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, the policy is not about drafting the policy, but also advocating it, right? Creating a kind of a fresher group. And I reckon that, the kind of awareness that there is, and the way the people can agitate, and the way people can come up, if you equip them with the proper, clear sort of the information, and feed into, this, we don't have our own media, that has been our handicap, which is somehow, taken a little bit over by the social media. And you see, what I'm trying to get it at is, you have an idea, then you need a mechanism to lobby, right? Sunny, am I right? That's what you're talking
Exactly, sir. Exactly.
about, isn't it? And when we are talking about creating the lobbies, we have to create the networks, information, right? Communication with political parties,
Exactly.
the
Exactly.
people's representative, not necessarily they belong
Indeed.
to your party, right? Or
Yes,
the
sir.
party that you feel close to. But there are ways to do it. You send, you have, if you dropped a policy memo, which is like very clear, very, 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 data driven, and then the next step is to send it to all the MPs across the political parties,
Indeed.
isn't it? Let them take up in the parliament. If they're not, you tell them that they are not. There are ways to, name and shame even, because ultimately the politicians have to come to the people, right?
Exactly.
Isn't it? So we need to have this very thoughtful group of people who can think through things. So it is not that the if you give the people proper information, for example, the people's representative, and if it is going to serve their political interest, like you see, who were thinking about women's reservation bill 10 years, nobody thought about it, right? And suddenly, why it's coming? Some political parties losing ground, right?
Sir, the opposition leader very well said in the Lok Sabha, if you have suddenly bring up that three farmers acts, why not you impose this one also immediately?
Yes. Why not?
You have introduced the notebandi kind of thing in a very sudden way. Similar way, you can introduce this bill also.
And EWS.
Yeah.
The only thing that we want is, we want a quota in everything, proportionate representation.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So I think the point here is to keep this tradition alive. Dara?
Sir, the Babasaheb is making case for equality of opportunity. So like reducing the fee, reducing age. But Marxist and socialist believes in equality of outcome. So in equality of opportunity, there will be still some inequality and winners and some will and some will lose. But so
See, there is all, different ways of looking at the things, and we have to factor in a lot of things. So this merit, or, this equality and all, these are all myths. There is nothing like merit. We know all that, right? So, they argue, we have to argue from various different positions, the way Babasaheb Ambedkar is doing it.
So I
yes,
think if there is a proper cutting analysis to proper qualitative and quantitative cutting analysis to these policies which are data driven, and as data speaks the truth, I mean this can, yeah, a proper case can be made, for lobbying, for whatever type of policy we are trying to push, or we are trying to get it towards the institution, or the parties. Even I believe, sir, this certain share in the tender businesses, I believe, was certain demands that came up. I think it was Digvijay Singh who actually
Right.
implemented. I think he implemented or met the demands of the scheduled caste communities to have a share in these tenders and businesses actually. So if we have data to back it up, and I think makes sense. I mean, like we lack the certain network social capital, and so it is obvious, it's staring in the face like the communities have historically lacked. So I think if we are well prepared in what we have to present, I don't think parties cannot. I think parties will have to fulfill one way or the another way.
It's a political compulsion. You have to. This is a competitive politics, right? And
And
everybody.
sir, parties will also, I believe, benefit from it.
Yeah,
Won't
yeah.
you think? Yeah, it is. It would be. It would also be in their interests also. I mean,
They have
they
to be
can.
educated. How many MPs are educated the way many of you might be talking?
Very few, I would assume.
So education of the public servant is very important. Giving them the points to argue, right? So if there is any passing last comments before we end for today. If not, then we meet next Sunday, 5 o'clock, and see all of them then. Nikhil?
Sure, sir. We'll meet next Sunday, and we'll also meet on Saturday for the session on Kabir.
Yes, definitely. So, Jai Bhim to all, and see you in the next trading session.
Jai Bhim, sir.
Jai Bhim.
Thank you.